for streaming. Pretty cool.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of our Justice and Pieces guest speaker series. Today we are joined by Rachel. So first of all, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining us. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and thanks again for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me here, JP. So I am a Ontario called lawyer. Um, I was called to the bar in 2017. I practiced under my own shingle. I went to school in the UK in Sheffield. Um, and when I came back, I had to do the NCA process and then figure out what made sense in terms of articling. And for me, that was the LPP. And so as an internationally trained lawyer, I've tried to help people so that they didn't face the same barriers, then they don't face the same barriers that I faced, and hopefully um, get, have an easier time of it integrating into the practice. So I am a director of ITL-NCA Networks Association, which is one of the organizing entities of the ITL conference. And I am also this year the planning chair for that conference, which is happening on April 23rd to 25th this year. So in a couple of weeks' time.
Perfect. So let's start with the conference, and then we can kind of go back and talk more about your journey and then the challenges that ITLs face and the supports that are available by organizations that are involved in putting on this conference. So you said April 23rd, 24th, 25th. So tell us about the conference and what you have in store and where did the idea come from and all the great details there.
Okay, so this conference was the whole point of it was to kind of build on the community of ITLs that has been growing in Canada ever since. I think it's something like 30% of every incoming class of licensees in Ontario, at least, are ITLs. But the conference is bigger than just Ontario. It is a national conference um, trying to bring and connect everybody as much as possible. Something that happens with ITLs is you just kind of like are told you need to do what the Canadian students do, and you need to kind of integrate and match your everything with theirs. Match your tone, match your resume, match whoever you are, and those other parts that don't work, just put them somewhere else for now. So we wanted to create a space where where you could really just be yourself and you could network and get to know other people who have been through similar struggles. And last year's conference focused a lot on sort of more typical lawyer conference stuff, very practical. Here's what an in-house counsel does. Here's what the path is to licensing. Here's what all of these things are. This year's conference is a little bit different. We tried to go for a bit of more transformative, hard-hitting issue, centralizing type of conference for those things that are really critical for not just ITLs, but all lawyers, but that do kind of disproportionately impact ITLs. So issues around inclusion and diversity in the profession, mental health. Recently the profession in Ontario, as you know, has been talking about mental health in the last couple of years quite a bit more, but again, never in the context of an ITL, which is, I don't know if I've defined this, but an ITL is an internationally trained lawyer. And so I should probably make that clear. And NCA stands for the National Committee of Accreditation, and often the two are used interchangeably, like an ITL is an NCA and vice versa. Um, and so we developed this sort of 3-day conference, and I say sort of because really the first day is just a welcome reception. We're designing it to be smaller. It will be focused sort of more on that junior contingent, whereas the rest of the conference does kind of target ITLs of all years of call. And so we'll have that initial night of kind of networking and liaising, and that will be held at Gowlings. So thank you very much, Gowlings, for that. And we're going to do it in conjunction with the Federation of Asian Canadian Lawyers ESL Foreign Trained Lawyer section. So it should be a very good mix of juniors and seniors networking, coming together. And then the full conference day, we have an amazing, if I do say so myself, schedule planned out that is going to kick off with those hard-hitting programs. So we have our EDI program with some fantastic speakers lined up for it. Excuse me. followed by a panel on the rule of law because we are living in trying times. And we all come, anybody who's internationally trained comes in with, I'm going to say, slightly different views of what the rule of law means. And I think it's kind of necessary to kind of get on the same page here of one, what does it mean in the Canadian context? And two, what do we as lawyers and licensees need to do to protect it and strengthen it? Um, and then, we've set it up so that we do have long lunch to again encourage that networking and meeting with our exhibitors and sponsors, followed by a number of breakout sessions about, let me just see here, I'm going to take you through them. We have a breakout session on, finding and building your niche and how do you develop into an expert in your areas of practice. How can we better integrate technology and AI into the practice of law to build our own competitive advantages? How do you develop your influence through branding? And, like we talked about before, some of those fabulous people who are so excellent at branding who will be at the conference. And so they'll be speaking to that. And we also have, a session that looks at all the people who have been making things steadily better for ITLs. That's our advocacy spotlight. And networking, writing, of course. Now, I think writing, people think about as being an unsexy topic, and maybe it is, but honestly, that's what we do day in and day out. So we better learn to do it well and figure out how to really showcase who we are through our writing. And then we're going to end the day with a mental health and civility session with, again, some just expert panelists. Yeah. So we have a mixture. One thing that we do have that I'm going to mention, in terms of our speakers, we have gone for a mixture of both Canadian trained and internationally trained lawyers for a couple of reasons. Partly it's that in some of these areas, the experience level of our internationally trained contingent doesn't necessarily match that Canadian level. And also, it is a really good idea for us to continue to sort of meld and integrate and network with each other for both the Canadian trained contingent to learn what it is that ITLs go through, and for the ITLs to understand, like, well, we are going to work together. They are going to be your opposing counsel. They are going to be your colleagues. And we all are striving for the same thing here. So let's figure out a way to optimize our experiences and do it together. So that's kind of where we went with that. And then on our final day of our gala, we are doing an award ceremony. We have about kind of a lot of awards. I think there's about 9 awards that have some fabulous recipients. And we also have the incredible fortune of having Justice Mahmoud Jamal of the Supreme Court of Canada be our keynote speaker, and he will be at the gala. And we will have the comedy stylings of lawyers Hussein Panju and Nadia Halom Arouse. So it's sure to be a very exciting night with a lot of laughs. And one other thing that I really love about the gala is, although our dress code is business business professional attire and up, we also strongly encourage and welcome people to come in their traditional dress if they so desire, which makes for, like, I think, like a really interesting type of conference. But also, like, and the conference day itself, inclusion is important to us. So if you want to come to the conference in jeans, we're okay with that. But that's what we're going for.
Perfect. So it sounds like, filled, you have 3 different days of a lot of events, the full conference there on the 24th. And you actually have a pretty prominent keynote speaker as well.
Yes, we're very lucky. Initially, we did have we were on the lookout for the very few ITL judges that exist. Now, at the beginning of this, of my stint as chair, I thought there was only one, and I'm happy to report that there are actually 5 in Ontario, which is pretty impressive.
That's great. So, now what kind of led to now this is the second year of the conference. So kind of what have you learned from, in your role as a chair from the first time and as you said, a little bit of changes there and hitting up the different sessions that you can share for anyone who's right now. I mean, I see right on my newsfeed right now, Kieran, I know he does tutoring there for the NCAA exams, just like he's got his ticket there. So for anyone that's kind of thinking about, hey, it's 2 weeks from now, should I go? What are some of the other things that you can share about, whichever event or the whole package
Hmm.
that would be really valuable for whether you're an internationally trained lawyer or not?
Um, well, I mean, we have, let me go scroll down here for a second. Um, we're really lucky. Like we, again, like our speakers, I could name them all. Do you want me to name them all? Because they are so amazing. And I haven't really, like we have posted them, but not everywhere. But we we have, oh, sorry, one thing that we do have that's interesting and unique to us is there will be a couple of book giveaways from both Emond Publishing and LexisNexis. And it's very generous of them to allow us to just freely give away their books. So there will be that. You can only do that if you come in person. Um, and we have a really strong interest from our speakers as well. So like they want to engage with you, they want to get to know you. We've got um people like I'm trying to think who are my biggest names here. We have the president of the Indigenous Bar Association, Alexandria Winterburn, who will be there, Adrian Ishak, who was, if you know, one of the original people who, well, or one of the longest standing chairs of RODA, the Roundtable of Legal Diversity Associations. We have a member from the Refugee Board, Thomas Card. We have Kim Gale, that most ITLs do know. Saad Minhas. We have Law Pro speakers, including the secretary and vice president of Law Pro, Victoria Crew Nelson, Devin Marr, um, fabulous other lawyers like Sahil Shore, Colin Lachance. We have Sean Bernstein, the Right Stuff Agency. He's amazing and super fun. Like all of these
Yeah,
people are
shout out to
just like
Sean. He's
really,
been a guest on here too, and we actually were on
they're
the
just
Durham Community Legal Clinic board together many years ago.
ah, yeah, like they're just like very, really like nice and lovely people who support who sometimes are ITLs and support ITLs and really they want people. I mean, I find with the legal community, like, yeah, we all get so busy, but we want the people that we help and engage with to succeed. Like we want to see people shining, and all of our speakers, they're like this. They're part of this contingent. So we have some amazing people from across the country as well, like Joseph Cuenca, who basically started the Amici Curiae Society of BC and the ITL section, the only ITL section of a CBA like provincial organization, was started by him. Um, Gina Alexandris and all the LPP will have a good contingent of people there. We have Erin Durant, who I feel like everybody in your audience probably knows because she's so prolific on the internet, um, and as a litigator. Um, and Gabriel Latner, who's an ITL, who is an appellate lawyer, which again, like you kind of uncover these things over time about who these people are and what their backgrounds are, but you wouldn't necessarily, just upon looking at what they post or what they're doing, that know for sure that this is what they do. But like the whole point is that these people, these incredible people who are so accomplished, they are just like the ones who are, starting out. And I mean, like one thing to note about the ITL community is these juniors, we call them juniors who are coming in. A lot of them are, have been judges in their own country. They have they've had astounding roles of influence and power, and then they come here and they're told, okay, well, you need to start at the very bottom. You're basically nobody, and like, what is a person supposed to do with that? Like, how do you internalize all of that and then go out there and try to be the best you can be? So we have people who can kind of speak to that. And we're bringing in Isha Gupta of I can't remember what her meditation thing is called, but she's like the lawyer's meditation guru. I like to think of her that way.
Esha, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great. And Sharon Roberts, we're gonna have a guy from Sharon Roberts' office who does ballooning art. Like he like makes balloon things, creatures, which, just to add a little bit of levity. Like, right, like we're lawyers. We don't need to be so serious all the time. We do want to have fun with it. The topics are serious for sure. Um, but there's a lot of joy to be had in community, and we really want to kind of revel in that. Um, and build that up.
Yeah, and so that kind of goes to sort of the bigger picture there, right? You talked about some of the challenges, right? And then I just got an email from, I run a paralegal program, and there's like, hey, we have this student who is, appeared before the Supreme Court in Pakistan, and they got to start all over again, right? And like, is there anything here that we can give some advanced standing? It's like, well, unfortunately, no. I mean, the law society rules are, it has to be a course from another paralegal program, and I can only imagine those challenges. So I don't know if either you want to talk about your own journey you mentioned earlier on, but sort of the bigger picture of what are some of the things that internationally trained lawyers have to go through once coming to Canada, and how do you kind of go through those barriers, and why organizations like the ones that are coming together with this conference are there for supports and ways to improve that transition.
Yeah, I mean, my own journey is not as interesting as some, I think. Um, I actually came back in 2013, I want to say, and there's a bit of a gap for me, and that was because I was taking care of my grandmother. I had family obligations that, could not be ignored. She had dementia. It was very difficult on my dad, so I was a very big part of her care, which impeded my exams greatly. And so back at that time, when I wrote my exams, they only allowed you to write them 3 times a year, if I recall correctly, and they only allowed certain exams per period. So you might have to wait like 1 or 2 periods before you could write one of your critical exams. And there's nothing you could do about it. Like that's just the way that it was.
And those the
Um,
NCAA exams, right? The
those are the NCA exams, yeah. And now, at least, they're able to write every month. They can, I think, write most of the exams every month. And if they do have to wait, like waiting a month is not so bad as waiting 4. Um, and so for me, like, and also I'm a Canadian. I, went to school here. I was in my undergrad. I kind of ended up in the UK by accident, to be honest. Um, I was in my second year of undergrad, and one of my professors said, "Hey, I think you could really benefit from this program in the UK." And so I went. And when I was there, I met the son of a Canadian judge there who had gone and then done the same program as me, I think, and then stayed and gotten his law degree. And so obviously I thought, yes, I can do exactly what this white man is doing and stay here, and it's going to be totally easy. Yeah. And then I'll just go back and become a lawyer and everything will be hunky dory. It was not like that. I was so like shocked when I found out what the actual process was when I came back. And it was a long road, and that was hard. And I didn't come from a family of lawyers. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to get into the community. The lawyers that I talked to would say things like, "Well, go and be a paralegal. Like that's what's made for you. This path for lawyers is not for you. You have to do this instead." And I think there's a lot of value in being a paralegal. And I feel like if they pitched it differently, perhaps I might have gone that route. And I mean, I think there's a lot of value for internationally trained lawyers to be a paralegal. Um, right now, like I'm, getting deeper and deeper into civil litigation myself, and I keep thinking, geez, would have been so useful if I had been a paralegal to start with. But it's not really the right response to someone who's internationally trained to say like, okay, well, this is the route for you, and you are not ever going to succeed going to Bay Street or going to um, any of the places where we try to funnel the Canadian students. So when I came in, you would say NCA or ITL, and people would just look at you utterly confused. Lawyers had no idea what that meant. Now there's so many of us, it's hard to ignore. Um, so I think it's a little bit different. I also think it's, a lot of the contingent, there are people like me, Canadians, who have gone abroad to study and come back and face these barriers. And we do serve them for sure. But there's a lot of people who are educated elsewhere who have language barriers that they face when they come in here, who are trying to provide for their family that is already pre-existing from when they, moved over. And the barriers for them are so much bigger. They're coming in, they're older as well. They're coming in, so they're getting like the ageist approach. Like, people are like, you can't possibly understand the system here. Just completely discounting their experience and having expectations that are just a little bit unbalanced as well. It's very difficult. And they're told, like, I think it goes back to my earlier point, like they're just told, like, you have to become this completely other person to succeed here, which personally I think is completely incorrect and terrible advice, because what they bring to the table is so much more valuable than what a lot of, than somebody who's literally just been in school this whole time, and then all of a sudden they're in the practice and they have no real world experience. Um, I mean, for myself, as someone who hires, I'd rather have somebody who has a bit of experience and real life connection, than someone who's, freshly graduated. Not to say that those people are not also intelligent and capable, but it brings a little bit of something different. Your clients want to have somebody who has a better sense of where the client is sitting in the room. I'm not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I'm looking at then like what can be like what are the ways to kind of improve that, right? I mean, I know there's been certainly networks, right? A number of the organizations that are organizing this as well as others, and whether it's support for passing the NCA exam, whether it's support for finding articling positions, right? Which I can only imagine now you have additional barriers. Like, well, what law school did you go to? Was it Osgood? Was it TMU? Was it U of T or Western? And you're like, oh, none of the above. I was overseas, right?
Hmm.
And so how does that kind of work in terms of, those supports to build that community? Because, and I'm certainly sure in a couple of weeks at the conference, you're going to have a lot of people that have those shared experiences that, doors were closed because I didn't go to law school here. Doors were closed because
Hmm.
I practice law overseas and I had to go through that process. And so what kind of helps in terms of
Absolutely.
networking, in terms of community to help break down those barriers and what else can be done for the ITL or the NCA community to continue going forward?
I think honestly, a lot of the things that can be done have to be done by the bar, or so by the law societies, and the bigger organizations as well. Like, I think so. My organization, ITLNCA Networks Association, has set up like a kind of parallel OCI process for NCAs, and we also have summer positions that are like kind of like sponsored summer positions that we help. We get the resumes and sort of compile them and send them off to the businesses that are interested in hiring and have accepted us into this process. There are other people who can speak to that a lot more in depth than I can. And we do different events as well to encourage people to how to network and connect on the Canadian level, and building out CBDs and education that is ITL relevant. Um, I think a lot is lost when you just go through, the CBA sessions or the LSO sessions, and they aren't really necessarily talking about any of the, not even that they're not talking about it, but they're just not looking at it from this perspective. Um, and I think it just, there needs to be that kind of encouragement, like, and and I think it is problematic when they're consistently othering the NCAs and ITLs. Like you can't kind of have it both ways. Like they're somehow both ignoring us and othering us. Like it's very like they're like, we're not gonna we're gonna treat you all the same, but we're not going to provide any kind of supports. And I think this is kind of the same for other communities that are um, being kind of blocked out by the Law Society. You know, like the Law Society chooses things that it wants to support. The big sort of the big overarching holidays, for instance, or month heritage months and stuff, and they kind of ignore everything else. And there's plenty of communities that feel like they're being rejected on some level because the Law Society just can't be bothered to recognize them. And it's this kind of the same way with the ITL community. So, and it's very hard if you're not getting that top-down approach. Now, there are increasingly law firms that do hire openly, that really encourage ITL applicants, and that not only encourage them, but like highlight them on a public basis and say, hey, look at this amazing associate I have who has this experience, and look at all these things that they've done. And that's really, really helpful, I think. I think it's having that support, like from the Canadian contingent of lawyers is critical. And I think that's one of the reasons why we structured this conference the way that we did. Um, because if we're constantly being siloed, then we're only reinforcing the same issues. It's not helping anybody. Um, I think as well, it would be great if the CBA and the OBA and all of the other bar associations of that organization throughout Canada did create individual ITL sections. I brought this up to them. I don't know if they ever will, but like I think that would help, right? Because that's where people see like this is what it means to be part of X group, you know?
Yeah, because like a section within the larger section there, because they have others, for areas of law and things like that. So because then you can
And
still
other
feel part
equity
of a
groups
yeah,
too.
part of the larger community, but still within, kind of you get the best of both worlds there. And the other thing, obviously, you mentioned the law study. I mean, that's been talked about it's been a few months now, but the licensing exam, right? The barrister and solicitor
Mm,
exams, and they compare the numbers, and again, certainly not comparing apples to apples, right? When you're looking at someone that's gone to school in Ontario versus again, where you also add in languages may not be the first English may not be the first language on top of that, and say, well, look, how come the numbers are different from
yeah.
the Ontario educated law school students versus those that are going through the NCA process? Well, that means there's a disconnect there, right? So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, and some of the proposals there, obviously, to look at more holistic approaches, and even again, you may also tie that into articling, right? And the LPP process that you may see more ITLs go there,
Hmm.
who may still need to do articling, or if they don't capture some of the time that they've had
Yeah.
overseas counting for an abridgment. And maybe you can touch on those 2 points.
Yeah, the abridgment thing is really interesting because again, when I came, that was not really done. Like it seems to be happening a lot more now. I don't actually know if that's a good idea, to be honest. I feel like there is value in having training of some kind. The licensing exams themselves, I mean, I feel like with the licensing exams, once you learn, if you are able to connect to the right people who can teach you how they're supposed to be written and what the strategy, because there is a strategy to writing those exams, and what that strategy is, then you're very likely going to be fine, provided that, again, that your language barrier is not so great that you are able to digest the questions in the adequate amount of time to answer them. I think the LPP program is amazing. And I went through the LPP program, and I can tell you when I was going through it, I don't think I necessarily thought that it was amazing, but looking back on it and all of the things that it provided to me and the skills that it helped me to start to cultivate, um, yeah, it was incredible. And I think having some kind of like going back to that old bar ad course, personally at least, I think that would be a very helpful idea and a helpful stream for everyone to go through. Um, because it's like wearing a uniform in high school. Or wearing our robes. It equalizes you, and it gives everybody like a fair kick at the can. And I think part of the problem with that and with articling is the human element, right? Like some of the teachers might just let you go on with whatever. They might not pay as much attention, or some of your articling principals may just give you things to photocopy rather than trying to give you an opportunity to draft things or to um, stand up in court. Like it's just there's not enough oversight. Like I don't know where all of our money goes. I mean, like kind of like they do give us reports, but like there's a lot of money that goes to the Law Society, and it seems lately that it's been going to particular pockets rather than to enhancing the profession, and enhancing training and supports. Like fair supports for a lot of them. Again, disproportionately come in. They already have families, but can they avail of like the Law Society's parenting support program? Most of us can't, realistically. Like I just had a baby 2 years ago. Could I avail of that as a sole practitioner? No, I could not. So it's like there's so many barriers that they're facing. Like it's not like it's just one. Like I'm just naming a couple here, but like it's not like it's just one. It's one compounded on another, compounded on another, compounded on another. And then they come in here and they're forced to write these exams that are sort of arbitrary, right? Nobody really knows how they're graded, how they're marked. Like I think you only get your grade if you fail. If that's still happening, I think that was the process when I did it. And so if you
Yeah, I think they
pass,
get
you
like a
pass.
breakdown or something like that. Otherwise, like a
Yeah, like a percentage, like these are the parts where you weren't so great. Um, and I feel like that's kind of problematic as well because there's nothing to go on really on that. And I don't know, or creating like some kind of like, why are there no study groups for those exams, for instance, or like the option through the LSO to join study groups. Like I would happily run a study group for students if this was a thing. Like you don't even need to pay me a lot or anything. Like I would just do it because it's an essential resource for training the next batch of lawyers.
yeah. I mean,
I don't
and
know.
certainly, like I said, there's lots of struggles or lots of challenges. So perhaps if you have any final words of wisdom, given all of these barriers, given all these challenges for internationally trained lawyers, who are coming here. Um, and wanting to succeed and seeing a lot of the difficulties. And again, it gets especially compounded when you're looking at here's what I was doing where I was coming from, and now I'm coming to Canada. And I really want to make things work here, but I am facing these struggles and these challenges, and how to kind of power through them and see the light at the end of the day, at the end of the tunnel on the other side when I can become licensed and I can provide practice law, whether as a barrister or solicitor, going forward.
I think um the biggest piece of advice that I could offer is to sit with yourself for a little bit, figure out what your strengths are in terms of networking and start from there. You know, if you are not comfortable in big groups of people, those networking events that bring together big groups of people may not be for you. Start reaching out individually, or if you are going to go to those, you know, try just to come away having talked to one person, set little goals. But the networking piece, I think, is really key. And I was talking to my husband about this recently. Like, I think, like, over time, like, there is, like, obviously the best way to learn something is to kind of do it yourself, read the cases, like, go to court, learn these skills. But also, like in law, there is a degree of learning by osmosis. So by finding those places, connecting with the organizations, connecting with different people, just reach out to people on LinkedIn. Um, that eventually, like as you attend and learn and hear more things, like those certain little things are going to stick with you, and you're going to be able to apply them into your own life. But if you don't stick yourself out there in those uncomfortable situations, then that's never going to happen.
Perfect. And speaking of those networking opportunities, maybe a last shot here. How can people find out more about the ITL conference, get tickets to whether the conference or the gala or both? And once again, thank you so much, Rachel, for taking the time to join us and share about your journey, the ITL conference, and all of the challenges and hopefully some solutions, and some solutions to be gained by coming on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of April.
So yeah, follow ITLNCA Networks Association on Instagram and LinkedIn. Well, Instagram mostly. That's where we're mostly posting for that organization. For ITL Network, Global Lawyers of Canada and Joy on LinkedIn and Instagram. And our website is itlconference.ca. I don't actually know if it's updated because I don't have control over that. But you can also go to our Eventzilla page, which is updated. Hi, Mommy. And sorry, I feel like that presenter on the BBC. Um, and Hi, Mom. Um, Yes. So come to the conference. It is at the Marriott downtown. We will let you register on the day, on the 24th. No, maybe no, probably not the 23rd, but we'll let you register on the 24th. We won't be able to register you for the gala portion though. So if you want your tickets for that, get them off of our Eventzilla page and I can send that or post that onto your YouTube
Yeah,
page so
we'll
you
add
can
the
get
links
access
in
to
for
it.
everybody right on
Hmm.
the YouTube right below. And so thank you so much again, Rachel. I see you're being summoned there Friday evening. Thanks again, and wish you all the best. And hope to see you at the gala on the 25th.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, JP, for having me.
Bye for now.